Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that story. And I definitely hear that takeaway of, the Holy Spirit. That is, He is our helper. And I love what you said. Like, He knows our kids better than we know our kids. So, we should be leaning on Him. And even as it relates to discipline. And I think, for me, it has been so challenging. And honestly, it has revealed more about myself, trying to parent Judah and discipline him and like just figure this thing out. And I find myself like, Father, help me. Like, that's what I find myself saying all the time, like just trying to listen because I don't want to miss it. And I know I can become frustrated at times and I don't want to act out of that. We were just talking about reacting versus responding. And so one of the things that I've learned with Judah, and, as I said at the beginning, we also have a 3-month-old. And I noticed like very recently his behavior has changed. And he was acting out more and just, he's also, like I said, in that developmental stage of 2. But, I just kept thinking about him like, no, this isn't Judah. Like, I know my son and I know that something else is going on here. And, out of just meditating and just listening, I realized like it was me. I was the problem. And it wasn't like even intentional, but I was just spending so much time with Anaya. And Judah wasn't getting, he wasn't getting as much time with me. And he needed that. And so, I don't remember what he was doing. I'm trying to start crying. But I don't remember what he was doing, but he was just cutting up. And, and I wanted to whoop him. And the Holy Spirit was like, give him a hug. Like, just love on him. And he immediately stopped. He immediately got it together. Like, he really just wanted my love, that nerd, Tori and Chrissy, I were kind of mentioning that. Like, he really just needed me. He needed my attention, my nourishing, and that sort of thing. And so, I think the biggest thing when it comes to discipline is to understand that the goal is to teach, not to beat. The goal is for them to learn. And that can happen in so many different ways. And so, and also just to be flexible, and kind of, you guys have also mentioned some different ways like whispering versus yelling, or, just that love in the moment, or redirection. There are lots of different things that we can do versus just grabbing, mommy said stop. So that's one of the things that I've learned about discipline. What about you, Tori?
Y'all have said a lot, because I can relate to that, Alicia. We went through that with Aurora. Like, I was like, this child is like going crazy. Like, what is going on? But I will say that me and DJ were both started to be intentional about just spending alone time with her. Like, and one thing, and just a tip that I found that really helped me out a lot is that instead of saying, Aurora, stop, don't do that to Gabriel, I started saying, okay, Gabriel, don't do that to your sister. Even though Gabriel doesn't understand that, but Aurora hears that I'm leveling it out. And I noticed that and that was Holy Spirit. And I noticed when I started doing that, Aurora calmed down. Like, she wasn't, because she was really being mean to Gabriel for a while. And I was like, I can't, like, you cannot do this to him. Like, but I was like, I can't keep beating her for being mean to him. Like, something's going on. And just like you were saying, Crystal, it goes back to knowing your child, or the Holy Spirit knowing your child, because it was certain things that she would do, and my nature is to whoop her. And even my dad would see, like, grandparents know everything, y'all. But even my dad would just be like, oh, you need to whoop her for that. And I would hear, no, don't whoop her. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm really having to go against what's so natural to me. That goes back to making an exchange and that precept that your belief system can be more powerful than the Holy Spirit. And so I really had to just change on some things. And I will say this, I noticed that when I started listening more to the Holy Spirit on how to discipline her, Aurora is calmer now. Like, she's that sweet little girl that she was when she was first born. Like, she's more loving. Like, she's hugging us more. Like, she comes up to, I love you, mommy. I love you, daddy. Like, she's trying to love on Gabriel too. But it just, I I guess, uproot a lot of that upbringing, but not throw away all of it. Because I know one thing, you asked Alicia, what's something that we kept? And one thing that my dad used to say to us all the time, I'm not raising you for where you are now, I'm raising you for where you're going. And so a lot of times when it comes to Dorora, if she's doing something, I'm like, okay, so what is this going to look like when you're 5? Like with the whole sucking her thumb when she was 7, I was like, okay, what is this going to look like when she's 3? Or she's 13 and I got to pay $5,000 for braces when we could have stopped it when she was younger. So that's something that I kept, and I wrote down something else. Oh, and like you were saying, Crystal, just pay attention to that child. Because like with me and my sister, like growing up, my dad had to whoop my sister. Like if y'all know her, like she needed whooping. But my dad me and I would cry. So really just paying attention, like you can't parent kids the same. Like I know we have young kids, but I'm those are something that I use. And I do talk to my dad. I do talk to him about that's something that I do use because I still honoring my father and taking heed to the advice because I'm still, like I mentioned earlier, I'm still learning so much from him. And he says all the time, oh, I figured out how to parent y'all when y'all grown. And I'm like, okay, so you want me for growing up, but yeah.